welcome everybody to another edition of the Exes podcast. I'm Scott.
I'm Therese.
And we are the Exes. And, for those of you who are joining us for the first time or have been around a little while, just to remind you, our show is all about friendships that continue after relationships end. It doesn't mean the friendship has to end. There's still a lot of good things between people. Sometimes everybody throws everything away for no reason, and we shouldn't do that. Life is too short to go without friends, and that's why we're here. But, when we talk about relationships once in a while, but really what we fell into is our passion for crime. And I don't know where that comes from. I'm not sure why that we get so excited about it, but we love talking about crime and criminals and court cases. And so we invite you to join us. If you'd like to come on a show with us, maybe have some fun with us. If you got a crime or a court case you'd like us to follow, we will do it. Just make sure it's something interesting. We don't want a regular bank robbery, but we want something that's got some teeth behind it. And right, Teresa. I mean, it's hard to find things. Sometimes we think we find an interesting one. It turns out it's not very interesting at all.
Yeah.
Sandy saying hi, kids. Hi, mom.
Hi.
Sandy, mom. So first of all, how you been? You doing good?
I'm good.
Following all of our crimes.
I've kind of fallen off a little because I was busy with this trial and sentencing. All that. Yeah. Actually, we're going to be wrapping up a big part of what we've been talking about this year so far, which is the Lori Daybell, Lori Vallow Daybell crime, in which all right, let's jump right in. Let's lay this out for people. Let's lay this out for people. This is what we're talking about, and this is like one big, huge box of insanity here. This is all the family members involved and all the ones that are in red. Tammy Daybell, Alex Cox, JJ Vallow, Tylee Ryan, Charles Vallow, and Joseph Ryan. Out of this family unit, all these people are dead under mysterious circumstances. To the point where right now there is a trial. There has been a trial for the murder of JJ, Tylee, and Tammy Daybell. The other ones, they're kind of still floating out there. I know they're going to be charging her with Charles's murder as well. Murder, or did they charge her with a conspiracy?
Conspiracy or murder. Yeah. Now,
she's also been
where
charged
she was charged.
Arizona.
What's that?
In Arizona, yeah.
Hang on one second. Okay, let's start that again. I'm not sure. I know I had a little hiccup here, and it's like I'm trying to figure out. It says connection unstable, but it says I have a strong connection, so I'm not sure where those are coming from. It could be from the storm. I do have a storm going on right now, so we'll do our best to try to keep it flowing as well as possible. All right. So anyway, Lori Vallow Daybell has been charged with the murder and conspiracy to commit murder of her two children, JJ, Tylee, and also with the murder of her new husband's wife, Tammy, who was murdered.
Hers is a conspiracy for Tammy.
Right.
Oh,
right. And Tammy was murdered while they were planning their wedding.
Yeah.
So, so this is a big mess. Right now, two people are under arrest. Chad Daybell and Tammy Daybell are under arrest.
No, Lori Vallow.
Lori. Tammy's a dead one. I keep wanting to bring Tammy back to life. So Lori got charged and she got convicted. Chad is waiting. He starts beginning of next year, but Lori has been charged and convicted of 3 murders and 1 conspiracy to commit murder, along with a few other minor crimes. Minor crimes being fraud by deception and other things. So she gets convicted, and then they had sentencing. They finally had sentencing.
Yeah.
What was your first impression when as they were getting ready for sentencing? Were you thinking she was going to get like just the book thrown at her, everything?
Yes, because I don't see how they couldn't until Judge Boyce started to open his mouth. And then I'm like, oh no, he's softening. Oh no. But he brought
now
it
there
around.
is there or is there not a death penalty where they are?
There is where they are, but they took it off of the table for her. Remember way back when they separated the trials?
Yes.
That was part of the agreement, was that they would take the death penalty off the table for Lori.
But why? That's what I want to know. Why? What was if they were going to take that off, that means she would have to give them something. What did she give them?
Well, there was that late DNA testing that came through that Chad's attorneys said they didn't have enough time to have it tested by their own experts, blah, blah, blah. He had waived his right to the speedy trial. Lori had not. So that was a difference from the beginning, because they were on separate wavelengths of that, right? So she wanted to go to trial right away. And then there was a delay, right? Because they wanted to have her retested, and then she was confident. So there was some delay. So her speedy trial was delayed, and that may be an appellate issue. So in order to not give the appeals court anything else, they decided that they would go ahead with Lori's trial and take the death penalty off the table for her because of that late entry by the prosecutors.
Okay. All right. I was wondering if it had anything to do with, and your opinion on this would be great. Her and her husband are both being charged with these same murders. Mm-hmm. The difference between the two of them is in the murder of Tammy, his wife, he's being charged with murder. She got charged with, conspiracy, because she was out of the state, I was going to say out of the country, but she was in Hawaii. She was out of the state, out of the state at the time. Now with Lori, all of the murders, they really cannot, and they didn't try to prove that she was there committing the murder itself, although she planned and orchestrated and did things and covered up and did all these pieces that proved she was a part of it. But in no way did they really ever say she swung an axe, she did this, she did that, right?
No, but they did strongly imply that she was present, at least for some of JJ's disposal, because there was a hair found in the duct tape on the outside of the plastic bag that he was wrapped in.
Whereas they have much more compelling evidence that Charles, or Chad, I'm changing everybody's names. Chad actually had some physical involvement, disposing the bodies, burying the bodies, doing this and doing that, and possibly in the murders themselves.
Well, yeah,
which they really believe
yard.
Alex did the murders in the most part, but they really, there's much more compelling evidence that Chad physically took part. I was wondering, do you think that played into taking death penalty off the table at all?
No.
Okay.
All right. I don't think so, because conspiracy to commit murder in Idaho carries the same sentence as murder does. So it would still be on the table, even if she was only charged with conspiracy in all three of them.
Now, at what point does it become conspiracy? I know you're not a legal expert, neither am I.
No.
And I haven't looked this up, but if I say, boy, I'd like to have that person dead, and then they end up dead, is that conspiracy? Or is it about a series of behaviors that participate in some?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea on that?
I think it's got to be a series of actions towards a plan. Like, if you're sitting together and you're drunk and you say, oh, yeah, I'd like to kill my wife, and then nothing else comes of it. Okay. But if you're sitting there with your buddy and you're like, all right, this is what I want you to do. I want you to break into our house. I want you to hit her over the head. That's conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
They're agreeing to commit this egregious act.
And you're part of planning of some kind.
Yes.
You're part of some sort of orchestration in some way. All right. Yes. So just the simple saying I'd like somebody dead is not, thank God. Okay. So now I know I'm safe. I just wanted to clear that up, that I don't have to be afraid of being arrested anytime soon.
does make it a little muddy if, other people have heard you actually say it and they do wind up dead.
Yeah. Yeah, and I no longer make lists anymore because I used to keep lists of people. I don't do that anymore because that could be found at some point as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Gene Ritchie's with us. Gene, hey, good to see you, Gene. So anyway, so now here we are. We've gone through the trial, which the trial was relatively quick considering we've seen murder trials where it was one murder and one crime committed that has gone on for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. And then we've got this one where there was 3 separate crimes, a lot of circumstantial things going on, and they wrapped that sucker up in like 4 months. That was really, I think they did a really good job on that, right?
Yeah. They did a pretty good job, yeah.
Except that
they would have let cameras in.
And the other, I guess the other part of it is the defense basically put up no fight.
Yeah.
During the entire trial and then during the sentencing, there was very little that the defense put in the way of the justice. They didn't. It was almost like they weren't trying. Did you get that sense in some way that they were kind of like, she's screwed, and we just kind of like want to mitigate the damages? We're not going to try this thing.
I think they didn't have a lot that they could really say, right, about the whole situation at the sentencing. Like they tried to, which really irritated me, but they tried to bring in the fact that she comes from love and blah 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 blah. Okay, that's a bunch of BS. But I also have heard throughout that she didn't want Chad thrown under the bus. She didn't want Alex thrown under the bus. And she didn't want any mental illness to be brought into her part of the trial. So they really tied her lawyer's hands on that. I guess she got angry at his closing arguments when he did kind of bring Chad into the story.
He did, because he alluded to the fact that none of this happened until Chad came along. He did kind of go into that in closing arguments. You're right.
And she got mad.
There was a little mention of it also at sentencing, just a slight mention, but it was very, very slight. And it wasn't what I thought. Normally, when you got a husband and wife who are being charged with these kind of crimes, at one point you would think they would start to say, listen, this, Lori was just this beauty queen who just followed this guy who was, and let me see, we got comment here. Her attorneys look like they wanted to be anywhere but sitting at the table with her. I agree. This was not, these were not happy campers. Let's look at these 3. This is Tammy and her 2 attorneys. Just to look at their faces.
Look at those stripes.
Oh, yeah. And she had that smirk. She had a smirk on her face 90% of the time.
Oh,
the only time I've ever seen emotion from her was when she got to speak. And it was not believable emotion. I'm sorry. I'm going to call bullshit on the crying. She cried out. She cried on cue
for herself.
Yeah, it was a little too much. It was a little too much. Like, oh, here's the part where I'm supposed to cry, and she started crying.
Yeah.
All right. So, sentencing, we had a parade of people. Not a parade. I shouldn't say that. 3 people plus a statement written in. We had an aunt, and we had other people.
And Colby too. He had one written or read in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now she's convicted of 3 counts. Or 2 counts of murder, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, which are all life sentences possible, and plus some other crimes. Now we're listening to the family speak in the sentencing, and did you get a sense that they were talking a little bit more about her behavior afterwards than they were about the real effect on the families? It seemed like every one of those people, except for the letter read into the record by one of the lawyers. But they were talking about she showed no remorse during the trial. They kept pointing to that. Almost all the family members. Did you notice that?
Yeah, but I think that they wanted the judge to really understand that because they wanted the maximum penalty. They didn't want any leniency. They didn't want. So I think they wanted to drive it home that they may have some of these delusions or some mental illness and blah, blah, blah. But the fact is she lied and covered it all up. She was involved in letting it happen and planning it. However, physically she was involved in it. I think she had a hand in both of the kids, honestly, to some extent. But that's just my personal opinion. And so I think they really wanted him to understand that now she has no remorse. She can't even say that she's sorry.
Yeah.
You know? And I think
now you and I were communicating.
Really know that.
Yeah, and you and I were communicating on and off while we were watching it because you're up in New York, I'm down here, and we were going back and forth a little bit, and we were both kind of like, she's not going to say anything. I mean, there's no way she's going to say anything. There's no way.
Nah.
And then the prosecution, they read their stuff. They took a break. You know, I don't know why he called it a half-hour break. That sucker was almost an hour. They took a break. They come back. The defense really laid nothing on the table as far as other than he tried to guilt people into giving her the possibility of parole after, I think, 30 years or something like that. It was some number. They said, you know, she would be 70 when she got out.
Yeah, she just turned 50. Yeah.
And they're saying this gives her hope so that he actually made this statement. He said, give her an incentive to be good in prison.
Yeah.
By giving her, if you do not give her a chance to get out of prison, she has no incentive to be good in prison. Good. Be bad in prison. Get shanked by Bertha down the hall. I don't care. I don't care. But that was the only argument they have. They really did not, as far as I know, put anything in the way of saying. They didn't talk about remorse, not once.
No.
Not once did one of the lawyers say, you know, she fell into a bad place. She did a bad thing. They simply, their only thing that they said over and over again was give her hope. That was it. Did you hear anything beyond that?
No. No.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And then the most insane thing happened ever. They said Tammy's going to speak, or sorry, not Tammy. Tammy's not speaking. No, actually she is, apparently to Lori. Lori is going to speak. And that was probably the most insane 8 to 10 minutes I've ever heard out of any human being.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put down religion. I mean, I certainly could, but I'm not going to. However, in this case, that was not religion.
No.
That was whatever they called it, hyper religiosity or whatever it was called. This is where she uses that as an excuse that her and Jesus Christ knew exactly what was going on, that her children come to her and speak with her, that they are busy in their new life. They are happy. They love her. That Tammy is her friend.
Her eternal friend. Yeah.
Her eternal friend.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, because so often we end up being eternal friends with our exes' murdered spouses. You know, it's wow. And she's telling this with a straight face, but not once. And she did break down at one point and say, I miss my children every day. And she did a little bit of crying, but in between those, there was also that they understand, they love me. No one else on this planet knows. Jesus talks to her. Jesus talks to her. These dead people talk to her, and she's the only one who knows. Yeah, Sandy saying she said the kids were communicating with her and they were happy. It was such an insane rant. And the only thing I could do is stare at her lawyers' faces, which were just at that point like deer in headlights. They're like, "How do you even defend this shit? What do you do with this?"
Right.
You know, what was your reaction? Was that what you expected, or was that even over the top for what you expected?
It was even over the top for what I expected. Yeah. I mean, what did she start out with? She started out with a Bible verse about casting stones. And then she says, there was no murders here. I'm sorry, but you were convicted of 3 murders. So how can there be no murders here? But that's what she started out. And then she started, did you catch that? Victim blaming. Suicides happen. Reactions to drugs happen. Overdoses happen. Okay, who are you talking about? Because poor Tylee was dismembered and burned. So how do you get suicide or anything else accidental out of that? JJ was wrapped and buried in the ground. How do you get anything else out of that but murder? So
I think what she was trying to do was create that moment of, you don't understand why people kill themselves. You don't understand why people die of addiction. You don't understand. There's things that happen in this world, and this is one of those things that happen. But to this day, she has never told anybody the story about what happened. She has not in any way, shape, or form said anything beyond, I'm the only one who knows. Me and Jesus are the only ones who knows. I would love if she would have said, me, Jesus, and Chad are the only ones who know. And there were a couple others, but they're dead now. So Alex knew, and now he's gone. There was, so zero remorse as far as, yes, I miss my kids. Fine. I don't care. But there was no remorse as to what she did. She absolutely, unequivocally laid out there that what she did was right. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty much, it was between her and God, and not another human being on this planet is privy to the information that she has. Now, this story about her dying during childbirth, is this a new story? I had never heard this before.
This is a new story. But you know that that's what Chad has always been preaching, right? That his veil.
Yeah, Chad apparently died, saw the light, came back, wrote about it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so now all of a sudden she died, and while she was giving birth to Tylee, which Tylee's aunt had never heard the story ever. Her relatives have never heard this. So her uncle and her brother have a podcast. They had never heard the story. So
this
anybody,
is the first time.
Yes, and you would think if that really happened, I mean, your family would know, right?
Well, I think, especially as much as reporters have gone after this case like a pack of dingoes on a slice of meat, right? I mean, we have been all over this thing. Yeah. Everybody out there, podcasters, reporters, news agencies, everybody's been all over this thing. And we're looking for things that tie Chad and Lori together and different things. And we're talking about his books and his false God bravado kind of thing that he does and all this stuff. Never once was that mentioned. That should have been mentioned. And now all of a sudden, I was dead for, I forgot what she said, like 8 minutes or so. I don't know what she said. It's something weird. Yeah. Something weird. That's like, okay, somebody would have noticed that. I think we know, as you know, the baby's coming out. Somebody would have said, by the way, she hasn't been breathing for the last 10 minutes. I'm just saying. They did nothing. Nobody knew nothing. And then she's had this experience where she talked to her sister who had died years before, which I'd love to know what the hell was all about. There's not listen, that much death cannot surround a woman without her being involved in one way or another in every one of them.
I agree.
It's just a mess. But I think that was the big shocker when she said that. I'm like, it'd be really easy to prove you're full of shit. Why would you say something like that?
Yeah.
That you died during childbirth. And like you said, nobody, people are like, I didn't hear that before. So she is just falling into the same thing Chad does and wanting to set herself as a false prophet and all these other things. But, that's pretty much, she was just justifying everything she did. Yeah, but you know what? If she sat there and said, I killed them because they were zombies.
Yeah.
Now, see, after Lori, for Christ's sake, after Lori, I know, I just can't help it. After Lori spoke, now it's time for the judge. And this is where you and I both started sweating a little bit. I felt that bead of sweat, kind of rolling down my back. I'm like, oh my God, this son of a bitch is going to go easy on her.
Yeah.
Because he's talking about she's never had a problem before. He kept saying that.
It's amazing that you've gotten to be 50 years old without a prior act.
Yeah. Not even a speeding ticket, for crying out loud.
I'm like, oh my God, no.
Well, you know what? I think she saved it all up, Judge. I think she saved it all up because she has now murdered 3 people. All right, that we know of. That we know of at this point.
Yes.
So I started getting nervous
4.
about that. But he did make mention to the fact that she has not, in any way, shape, or form, explained herself.
Right.
He did make mention of that, and that's when I started to see that he was not going to allow this to happen. There was no explanation, but yeah, when he was talking about, you've been an exemplary citizen, except for these few minor incidences that happened recently. It was almost that scary, right?
Yeah, but then I did like the fact that he said, "People call you the mother from Idaho. You are not a mother from Idaho.
That's right.
You came here for a short time with one purpose, to get rid of your kids." And he acted like he didn't appreciate that. Kind of like, don't come to my town and do these crimes, right?
That was exactly what he did. And I love that. That was the old sheriff saying, the old sheriff saying, you don't come to my town and do bad things because, we'll hang you for that.
That's right.
And that's kind of where he went with that, is like, you weren't coming here to set up a life. You were coming here to our state to kill your children. Mm-hmm. And he was very, very adamant about that. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes
he grew up there at that moment.
He did, or it just got to him, when you think about it, how many judges, what did he have to listen to? And he has to hold his tongue the whole time.
Yes.
He doesn't get to sit there saying, oh my God, you bitch. He doesn't get to do that during the trial. He's got to sit there and just nod and say, okay.
Mm-hmm. One thing I did not understand, I didn't know that you were allowed to object to victim statements. I thought victim statements were victim statements and they were free to say what they wanted to say.
What they were objecting to.
Well, we don't know if they didn't read it, right?
Well, there was a couple of points there. One was they could not go into details about Chad. And so that was one of the rules about the victim statements, because that trial has not happened yet and he is innocent at this point. He is innocent of these charges. The other thing was being careful about the Charles Vallow.
But they talked a lot about Charles.
They did, but they had to be careful about saying that she was guilty of those things. It was just kind of weird. But the biggest thing,
murdered her brother.
I know, and that was one of the things they objected to, but it got overruled.
No, but that was allowed. Yeah,
that got overruled.
Yeah.
And then there was another part was they were objecting to all of the comments about her behavior in the trial. A victim impact statement is supposed to be the impact on the family because of the crime, not because of the trial. So, but that's what they were arguing, but I don't know that stood because they were able to talk about those things. The victim impact statement is supposed to say, you killed my husband, and so this is going to be impact on our lives and my children and all that stuff. To sit there and say, and then you smiled in court, it takes it to a different place.
But
they didn't want it to go.
But that affects a family member.
Right? I agree with you.
You see this person that you used to have vacations with. You used to go to their house. You allowed them to adopt your grandchild. And then you sit in court being accused of murdering him, and you're laughing and smiling. I think that does affect the family. I mean, that has to have a big impact.
I agree with you too, but I'm saying that was one of the things they brought up, and I think that was overruled as well. But there were certain things on impact statements.
Was some things.
There's certain areas you can't go into for some reason.
There was some things that I guess, because as she was going through, she's like, oh, nope, I can't say that. Oh, but it also flustered her, and I don't think that that's fair. I mean, yes, Tara wrote her victim's impact statement, right?
Yeah.
And there were a couple guidelines.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything that they told her she really couldn't say.
I think probably there was a little more rules involved in this because, one, she is going to be in another trial for Charles' murder. Chad is being charged with the same murder she was charged with in the same state. So there may be some things about, leaning too far into that. I don't know for sure, but I know you're right. There were some rules they were arguing about. They were trying to stop some of those people from even having an impact statement.
I know.
I'm not sure it really mattered at the end of the day, though. I think the judge was going to do what he did anyway.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, I think that when Lori spoke, it kind of cemented the fact that he knew what he was going to do, because he realized at that moment that she is not admitting to any wrongdoing. She hasn't displayed any feelings or remorse for it, and she's still delusional. However, I mean, if she's purposely acting delusional, or if she really is delusional because that's the only way she can live with herself.
Yeah.
Either way, she's not taking responsibility and accountability, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Now, yeah, absolutely. There was no accountability. There was at no point did she say, I regret what happened or what I did. The only thing she did that was anywhere close to anything that sounded like remorse at all was she said, I missed my kids. But that was the only thing. At no point did she, and she even alluded to the fact that, yeah, I did what I did, but you just don't understand it. And that's like, okay, I'm sorry. By society, we understand it. You took a life. This is it. Now she's standing there. She gets the sentence read after the sentence recommendations by the prosecutors and the defense. Bottom line is she got 3 life sentences. JJ's murder, Tylee's murder, and a conspiracy.
I think she got 5.
Oh, because she got conspiracy plus murder on the other 2. 5 life sentences.
Yes.
Now, one thing is he also said they are not to be served concurrently. They're consecutive, which means it's one after another.
Yeah.
See, when it's concurrent, if something happens to one of those cases, one of those deals, you could possibly have, get out. There's things that can happen. But because it's consecutive, they could even say, oh, all the evidence in JJ's murder was taken away and we can't charge you with that murder anymore. The other murders still go on consecutively, and she's never going to be out of prison no matter what happens, any way, shape, or form. I thought what was funny, though, after they had already determined she was getting these consecutive life sentences, or no, it was before that. It was when the prosecutor was suggesting life without possibility of parole on all the counts. Mm-hmm. And on one of the, I think it was fraud by deception charges, he wanted the maximum 20 years. And the judge looked and he says, wait a minute, that's only 14 years for the maximum. And the prosecutor saying, well, I think they changed that to 20. You're giving her 5 life sentences. Does this really matter? Does this really matter?
It does, though. It's the principle.
Why does it matter?
It's the principle of it. It is. Because she needs to be held accountable for all of her crimes, which is why Arizona is also going to try her, because Charles's death and Brandon's attempted death, they deserve justice. They deserve to know that she's paying also for those crimes.
Now, could she face death penalty in Arizona?
No, because their conspiracies in Arizona doesn't have the same. Arizona has a maximum amount for conspiracy. The death penalty would not be eligible, no.
And I know everybody deserves their day in court, but now you've already got her locked up. She's gone. She's out of society. I know we've got to prove it somehow that she did these things. I think we already know she did.
Well, we know she did, but
I know, but really, it's not going to make a big difference. I have no idea.
I think it does make a difference for the families.
For the families, I agree.
It gives them some closure. They know that the person that they suspect killed their loved one has been found guilty and is going to serve their time for it. And I think that gives them some kind of closure and helps them move on.
I agree with that. I understand that. I don't want to be like a unfeeling asshole or anything. It's like, I know people want closure and they want somebody to be accountable.
Yeah. She also got she also has restitution.
I was just going to bring that up. She's got restitution. Now, at one point he said $5,000 to the victim's family. And I'm like,
yeah,
what is the point of that? And I would be like, that's an insult. But then he started talking about the other stuff. What did it end up being a total of? I mean, how much money?
22,500, something like that.
That's it?
Yeah.
But
I mean, and I don't think the family's even give an iota about the money. I don't think that I think that they're ever going to see any of that, right? Because she's not making any money. She might, whoever puts money on her books in the jail, they will take and I heard it's a big percentage goes to restitution first.
Okay.
So if somebody gives her, like if her mother sends her $100, she may see 20 of that for that month, and they will take 80 and put it towards what she owes.
See, now what I would like to see is that if she is life in prison, that she may never profit again, especially from anything to do with those crimes, which means you want to write a book, you want to sell movie rights. You don't get that. Victims' families get every single freaking dime.
Well, I
would love to see that.
I don't think people convicted can profit, like from a book or whatever. I don't think they can profit from that.
But we've seen a lot of people sell their stories in prison. Where does that money go?
They may sell their stories, but I don't think they can profit from the crime that they committed. Now, if she, like, say her mother passes away and she inherits life insurance, they'll take most of that until the restitution's paid.
Well, that's why the restitution should be, make it $20 million. That way it can never be finished paid. And every time she, you know what I'm saying? I don't ever want her to ever have a peaceful moment. It's the truth. And I'm not trying to be, I'm just saying she doesn't deserve that. But these families do.
Yeah.
And they're such an impact. This family tree, this is an insane 5 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, 6 people dead in this family tree. Now, although Joseph Ryan, one of her first husbands, not her very first husband, one of her,
I think it was her third husband.
Yeah. And then Alex Cox, those two do not look like they're going to be tried.
Do not?
They do not. That's like a donut. That's a donut. But the other ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, these things were all coming around. 5 with Charles, sorry. 5 murders that are all going to trial and all having to be dealt with. This is one messed up family. I don't know. I'd never want to see her profit. I hope they never. There's going to be a movie. Well,
there already has been a like a thing on Netflix, right? The documentary.
Yeah, that's a docudrama kind of thing, right?
Yeah, they'll have a movie. I'm sure there's already books in the works. Like the uncle's writing a book, a cousin's writing a book, somebody else has already written a book. The woman I listened to, she as soon as she heard about the case and stuff, she decided she is under contract to write a book. She has a publisher that is waiting for, her final draft and stuff. So that has become her job. Following it, her YouTube channel kind of started because she's so in depth because she's writing her book. You know what I mean? But then there's these self-published books about it, and it's just there's going to be a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure Charlize Theron is already lined up to play the part, and whoever Ashley Tisdale maybe.
No, she's too young.
Yeah. Let me see. I think there are this is from Sandy. I think there are probably other murders in her past, and if she remained free, there would be more. I don't think she could have stopped. Her and Chad would have stopped at this point had they not been arrested and put away. I'm just curious what kind of ministry they're going to start in prison. I'm serious. Do you think she's going to try? She is manipulative that way. You never know.
She might.
But
she might gather some followers. Yes.
Well, they said she was a model inmate. Oh yeah, I love that when the defense says that. The defense was like, she has been a model inmate, and it's like, really?
And okay.
Yeah. Most people are pretty much model if I lock them in a cage 23 hours out of a day. They're pretty
how
much
much trouble could you get into?
Yeah, exactly. I'll put her in a cell with Martha Stewart, Martha Stewart Shanker. Anyway, so that brings to the end the case, part one. It brings to the end part one of Lori Vallow Daybell's trial. When does she start looking at facing the charges for Charles, her husband?
We don't know. Arizona definitely has a plan to extradite her to there to answer those charges for Charles and Brandon. But what they're saying kind of online is that there's kind of like an orientation type thing, like where they kind of show, like they have to do some testing of the prisoners. Sometimes they have done no work that they have to do. They have to do a medical exam. They have to do a psychological exam. They have to acclimate her into the prison life a little.
Oh my God. Throw her in a hole. You're going to give her dental and medical? I don't have dental and medical. What the hell?
So they're saying that it could be like 30 to 60 days before she's ready. But it also depends on when Arizona decides to ask for her to be extradited, like how, they got to work that out. They could ask this week. They could wait a month. Okay. But they're going to do it.
So she's going to be possibly facing maybe a life sentence or whatever it might be from Arizona.
I think it's like 20 years or something.
Which, to what I understand, the charges she faced now were the more egregious charges. They would be served first. So they have to wait until the end of 5 consecutive life terms before she would be transferred to Arizona. So she's going to have to actually be buried here for the next 500 years. And then they're going to unbury her and bury her in Arizona to finish out.
Possibly, but that will be the last trip she takes. This is her little trip to Arizona to face charges there, and then bring her on back to Idaho.
That's it. And I hope it's maximum security, federal, no frills prison. She just. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, she's not like a bad prisoner, so she doesn't have to be in a bad place. I don't care. It's based on what you did. I don't care. It's not about who you are. It's about what you did. What you did was you killed a lot of innocent, good people. The innocence of children is beyond. I know you and I have talked about it even before with certain cases where mothers killing their own children is kind of one of the worst things you could ever hear.
Absolutely.
And there's not a place that's bad enough to keep her. And so I hope she's not in a cushy place with nice sheets.
Put her I don't think it's cushy. Yeah. I've heard it's not cushy
Now, moving on, the trial was successful as far as the prosecution was concerned. They handled themselves well. Judge did a great job keeping it under control. Charles is up next. Or Chad, I'm sorry. Charles is dead. Chad is up next. Chad Daybell is up next, and we got to sit through his trial next. If there is a trial, what is the over-under as far as you're concerned? Do you see that going to trial after seeing what they've just seen? Or do you see where now he's going to start cutting deals?
I think a plea deal is possible. Kind of 50-50 of it. I think it depends. If his lawyer can get death off the table for him, I think he might go to trial. But if he can't, I think he will take a plea deal.
He'll do a plea deal to take death off the table. He'll do whatever he can to take death off the table.
I think so.
Why would they want death off the table? Apparently, these two are very experienced at it. Him and Lori, they already been. She said in her statement she went to heaven and she misses heaven every day. Send her there. One-way ticket. It's easy. It's easy. You don't have to call. You don't even have to go to cheaptickets.com. One-way ticket to the afterlife. Let's send her and let's send him. If they're so good at this afterlife thing, if they're so good at death, let them show it. If we kill them, then they come back, set them free. But, but if they don't come back, then they weren't meant. So, yeah. So this will be really interesting. I have a feeling that right now the conversation is exactly what you said. if we can reduce sentences in any way, death off the table, perhaps a less security or whatever it might be, any kind of comfort level at all, you'd be bargaining for that with a plea deal. Going to trial, there is no way he's going to be able to beat this case in trial, because the case has already been tried. It's already been tried. There was not a hole in that case that had anybody saying, oh, maybe Lori's going to get off. It never happened.
No. And apparently they have a little more evidence regarding Chad than they did regarding Lori, as far as like his phone pings and things pinging with Alex and blah, blah, blah. We don't know everything they have, but apparently they feel the stronger case was against Chad.
Absolutely. I mean, they've almost got him dead to rights on burying the bodies and when he did it and things like that. So there's all sorts of little things going on there. I agree. There's no chance of him beating this thing. And now, I think that's the advantage of going second, is you get to see the loopholes, and there were none. Right.
But the prosecution does have a right to say, no, we're not giving you a deal. We just got 5 life sentences in this case. Our case is stronger against him. We're going to trial. The only thing would be for the families, right? So they don't have to go through it all again, see those autopsy photos again. And Idaho is a very, very small state.
Right.
And it costs them a lot of money to do this once. Going to cost them double, even more if death is on the table. So I think in the interest of saving the taxpayers and the families, possibly they might give him a plea deal. But I think they're going to be pretty adamant about the fact that he's got to at least admit wrongdoing, right?
Yeah, it can't be like this with Lori.
No.
It can't be like he can't make a deal and then not talk about it.
There were no murders here.
Yeah. He's got to, if there's going to be a deal, I want somebody to step up and say what happened without all the bullshit, without all the stories, without all the other stuff, without the talk about afterlife. I want to talk about what happened to these children.
I don't want to hear that you were so in love with Lori that you couldn't see through the fog. I don't want to hear that BS.
No, absolutely not.
Her kids were in the way. I didn't like them. We need to get rid of her.
Yeah. I agree.
I couldn't get a divorce because if I got divorced, I wouldn't get her life insurance. So she had to go.
And the prosecutors might be thinking, you may be exactly right, Therese, that they may be thinking, it's like, screw the deal. We didn't hit one road bump with Lori, and Chad we've even got more. Let's go at it and let's get one of these guys in the chair. Mm-hmm. Now, the funny thing is that most people who get death penalty die in prison before they get to so he could get the death penalty, but spend the next 20 years in prison and maybe die in prison anyway. So you never know.
Well, I guess the statistic is the last actual, what do you call it? Death row.
Execution.
That was like 30 years ago in Idaho.
In Idaho? Wow.
Yeah, it was like 30 years ago. So, I mean,
I heard moving to Idaho. I heard moving to Idaho is like death itself anyway, so I don't know. I'm just kidding. I'm sure they're all wonderful.
Beautiful there.
Yeah, not everybody kills their families in Idaho, I'm sure. Not all of them.
They did bring back the firing squad.
Because
a lot of the companies that manufacture the drugs that you need for the lethal injection refuse to do it for death penalties. So I guess it's pretty much all over.
You don't need those companies.
So Idaho.
I'll go down to Lowe's and get some chemicals right now. It'll cost me about $4.95 that we can inject. It'll work.
It's either Idaho or Colorado that reinstated death by firing squad.
Oh, okay.
Because it was either this case or the Letitia Stout case. I forgot which it is.
Oh, yeah, that's another one. Wow. Anyway, so that's it, folks. We're going to wrap up the show because we've gone. It was quick. It was quick, and this is again. We're putting a period at the end of the sentence on this case part one of the Lori Vallow Daybell case. And again, she will be in Arizona. We don't know when that could be. The truth is, it could be sometime next year. It could be 3 years from now. You just don't know with how these things work. Right. To answer for the death of her husband, Charles, where it was supposed to be self-defense with her brother involved, and the attempted murder of her nephew. Is that what it was? Or
it was her niece's husband. Yeah.
Yeah. So like a nephew-in-law kind of thing.
Yeah.
The attempted murder, or at least the terrorization. I mean, I don't even know if they were trying to murder him or scare him or whatever it was.
Oh, no, they shot out his driver's side window, so it seemed like he was aiming for his head.
Probably.
I mean,
probably.
It missed him by like an inch. Like, he was lucky.
Well, it explains, that's why a lot of these, Charles was killed with a gun. The rest of them weren't. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so we've covered that. We're going to be looking at some more cases the next time we're on. We're going to come up with some new stuff. We'll keep you apprised of what's going on with the Daybell family, but it's time for us to move on, look for some other things. We're going to have some more humorous crimes as well. And, cover some other things. Is there anything out there right now that's catching your eye, that's giving you some interest about anything? There are still some missing person cases out there that we need to talk about at some point.
Yeah, maybe we should do a missing person one, but we do not have to talk about the one that faked her kidnapping.
I don't remember. Yeah.
I forgot what her name is. Yeah.
She faked her kidnapping. Now she's in deep doo-doo.
She is.
Because federal crime, and that's a problem.
I've got to say, she probably needs some mental help, though.
You think?
to go to those lengths, I think the girl needs help.
I think that's a pretty safe bet. But for everyone out there, hey, follow your crimes. If there's something you want us to follow or draw attention to, or maybe a famous one from years ago. I mean, to revisit the Jean-Benet Ramsey, Jack the Ripper, anything you want us to revisit one. We'll revisit. We'll look at some famous ones.
Now,
if you want.
Jack the Ripper was never solved, correct?
That was never solved. There are a lot of theories, but there was never resolved to any of them. And Sandy's throwing in there, the woman who faked it was, of course, from Florida.
Of course.
Yeah, because, that's where all the serial killers go, and the crazy people move to Florida. That's what we're, hey, we're the home of the crazy. We got flamingos on our lawn and crazy people in the houses. That's what but we'll Jack the Ripper was never solved, like you were saying. There's a lot of theories and stuff. We could talk about those kind of things. Certainly, there's some of the greatest crimes ever, the Zodiac killers and the Son of Sam and all those. We could talk about those if you like, or we could talk about what's going on out there right now. There's crimes every day, and certainly, if you know something, or if you know somebody who's done something wrong, don't sit on it. Because there's always victims that are suffering somewhere. Don't let victims suffer. Help people. Don't let people get away with this shit. But yeah, and if you want to be on the show with us, let us know. Just reach out to Teresa or I on our Facebooks, and we'll answer you. And if you are a crackpot or crazy or you're a stalker, well, we need the fans. So just keep it coming.
We need the fans. So keep it coming.
All right, final thoughts, Teresa.
I'm glad that your storm held out and you were able to finish.
Me too. It just started to die down. Like just now, the last rumbles went by.
Of course it did.
Of course. All right. I want to thank Teresa. Always so much fun spending time with you. And, sometimes at the end of a hard day, it's good to have a friend that you could just talk to about murder and mayhem and all the things.
Murder and mayhem.
and for all of you out there for watching and listening and sharing the show, we appreciate all of you as well. Make sure you tune in next time for the next one of our Exes show. But for now, remember, each day, do 2 nice things for yourself, 1 nice thing for somebody else, and you'll never go wrong. Everybody out there, have a great night. We'll catch you next time.